As I promised, I'll be doing 2 AUs a week, and it's summertime, so I thought I'd bless you people with another AU. And I gotta admit, this one caught me off guard. They turned the most childish show into a dark mess. Now, just like every other kid's show, every episode has a name, and this one is called Road Trip, which we'll see why in a second. But I want you to think of this as if it's just a normal episode of Bluey, featuring the main character named Bluey, a playful 6-year-old pup, Bingo, her little sister, and her two parents named Chili and Bandit. And in this episode, boys and girls, we're learning the meaning of sacrifice. So the AU starts off in Rusty's home, where his mom's asking, "Rusty, honey, why are you up?" But she gets no response, and as she follows up to ask again, immediately, Rusty turns into something no mom would expect their child to become. I don't know about you, but I noticed how the time says 1 p.m., which is a weird bedtime, which makes me think he was sick, possibly by the infection, and went to the hospital, or should I say vet? And the doctor told him to just go home and get some rest, but that didn't work, and the type of dogs they are red kelpies. But I gotta say, he's a different breed now. Now we're taken to Bluey's house later that day of the Rusty incident, and Bluey's dad is watching the news. And then he calls his wife Chili into the room because he can't believe what he's seeing. And she says, "Bandit, what's wrong?" And he looks her in the eyes and says, "Look, there's something wrong on the news."
Breaking news! A new infection is spreading fast. Stay inside. The infected are fast and zombie-like.
So the news is saying that there's an infection outbreak, and they're comparing the infected to zombies. And meanwhile, Bluey and her little sister are outside playing with the balloon and eventually called inside. And I don't know if I'm the only one who noticed, but judging off the background, there's an animal we've seen before, lurking. So luckily they left just in time, and when they get inside they see their dad and basically ask, "Dad, why are you covering up the windows?" And their dad basically is like, it's a new game." Now you're probably saying, "Ty, why is he lying to them?" And it's quite simple really. They're young and they might start panicking and cause a very over-traumatic experience for someone whose brain is not even fully developed yet. Bluey's parents wouldn't want their pups going through that type of stress. Nobody would. Then the AU shows us the status of the characters, starting off with Bingo, who's pretty hungry because she has been playing outside, has 100% sanity and health, which is why she, of course, is happy emotionally, and is completely unaware of the virus. Bluey is kinda similar. She's hungry as well after playing outside and is unaware of the virus, healthy, and not going insane. Bluey's dad, Bandit, is pretty confused and actually doesn't even want to believe that the virus is actually real and is starving, possibly from all the boarding he's doing. Bluey's mom, Chili, is concerned and doesn't really know that much about the virus either, but is going to feed her kids because they're starving with these 2 bananas that's in her inventory. Now, even though they don't know much about the virus, doesn't mean you can't. The virus actually started at Rusty's house when he was playing with the tennis ball that accidentally fell into the dirty kiddie pool water, getting infested with loads of bacteria, with him saying, "We really should clean that kiddie pool out more often." And everything starts going wrong when he starts to play a game with his friends and accidentally hits his mom through the window with the ball that hasn't been cleaned and landed right into their dinner of lasagna. With Rusty's mom saying it's probably still okay to eat, a little dirt won't hurt. And of course later that day, Rusty would go to his mom saying, "Mom, I don't feel so good." Starting the 5 stages of the infection, with stage 1 making you more confused and have nausea, with the bacteria seemingly starting to spread throughout your body. By stage 2, you start to experience more fear and pain, and your eye sockets become darker and shrink. And weirdly enough, you rapidly grow, exceeding the heights of the average adults in Bluey. And it comes at a cost, as it seems like you get scoliosis and your bones start to bend. And this is all most likely why they're in so much fear and pain in this stage. But it gets worse. By stage 3, they're more angry-like as well, are walking on all 4s, and look like a creepy creature, with sharper teeth this time and way smaller eyes. By stage 4, they're most likely completely gone and not even talking, and completely formed into a rageful monster. All of their hair is gone, and it seems like their skin is almost trying to peel off. This most likely is from all the stretching and strain on the body that it just can't take it anymore. And by stage 5, we don't know how much bigger they've gotten, but just know that they're even more rageful, and their eyes are back and more bloodshot red. Rusty is still out there, and he's hungry, and as you can see by his face, filled with anger. So as Bluey's mom feeds her kids, she goes and says, I'm gonna go check and see if the living room is all boarded up. And when she goes in there, she instantly lets out a super loud scream as an infected has came through the door with bite marks and drenched in blood. And out of nowhere, Bluey's dad comes and seemingly puts the poor thing down, as Bluey and her sister watch from a distance, with one of them saying, Daddy, what's wrong with Rusty? But he tells them, kids, out now. Unfortunately, Chili was bit, and Bandit says we need to take care of that bite now. And she basically tells him, but we have to finish boarding up the house. And she's right, so they go into the bathroom and they try to disinfect her wound. And before she becomes rusty, no pun intended, they get to talking about what they should tell the girls about what just happened. And after getting her wound treated, she says, I don't really care, and quickly goes back to boarding the house to prevent more infected from making themselves at home. And that's when something crazy happens, because later as they're boarding up the house, Chili yells for Bandit to come in the living room, and she's like, honey, where's Rusty? And moments later, Chili would find out that her sister has came over and she's crying on the ground, talking about she's sorry for what she did to Rusty, who's completely busted up on the ground with even his brain matter showing. And supposedly Rusty attacked her and she ended up unaliving him completely, and she basically tells her to go clean yourself up and I'll explain everything to you later. And after disposing of Rusty's body, she goes and checks up on her girls who are playing in the other room. And as it seems like it's getting late, she tells them that they're gonna have a sleepover tonight in her room. Which makes sense in times like this, that they're not sleeping in their own room alone, because any day or night could be their last. So why not spend it as a family? And they go to sleep. But later that night, for some odd reason, there's knocking heard at the door. So Bandit grabs his hammer, and on the other side of the door, it's Lucky, who, if you didn't know, is actually one of Bluey's best friends and is the next door neighbor. And the reason why he's over Bluey's house this late at night is because he says his dad and mom are acting strange. And that's when Bandit lets him inside and he says, "Thank you, Bluey's dad." Now I know a lot of you are probably like, what in the world was he thinking? And rightfully so. With all the things going on in the world, I would definitely think twice about opening a door this late at night, let alone trusting anybody and putting my family potentially in danger. Now, Chili, worried that Bandit hasn't been back in a while, goes down and checks to see if he's alright, and before she can get to the stairs, at the bottom sits Bandit, who begs for Chili to run, as the monster lets loose all of its anger on him. And with no time to mourn, when Chili gets back into the room, she starts boarding up the place and accidentally wakes up the girls with loud noises, and she tells them to pack their bags. We're going to Auntie's house. And still throughout this whole time, she makes it seem like to the kids that this is all part of a game and that nothing serious is actually going on in the world right now. And instead of going to Bluey's aunt's house, they end up instead staying at their grandfather's. And as the girls go inside, he basically is like, hey, what's up with the unexpected visit? And she just tells him about the infection and how home isn't even safe anymore, and basically says that they need to stay here, and mentions that Bandit sacrificed himself so that they could escape, and starts breaking down in tears in his arms. After Chili gets herself together, she goes inside and goes to the girls who are making cards for their dad, and she breaks the news to them that Daddy's not coming home. Later that day, Bluey's mother and aunt eventually get together and they talk about going on a supply run. So of course they don't starve and have everything they need for the next couple days or even months or years. And instead of them both going, they decided that one has to stay to protect the house and the other go to the grocery store with a gun. So Chili's the one that leaves, and she eventually arrives at the grocery store in her Jeep and looks for food inside, but then out of nowhere, of cans and rattling is heard, and she gets startled by a monster. But before he could shred her into bacon strips, he was shot down, luckily surviving the encounter and leaving before any more could come. And this is when she makes a super risky decision that might upset some of you. She decides to go back to her home. And when she arrives, she thinks everything's safe because she doesn't see anyone in sight, but she needs to keep her kids occupied and has to get some toys inside. And when she gets inside, she gets what she needs and eventually hears some groaning from a monster creature downstairs and decides to leave. Luckily, she returns home safely to her kids, and on top of that, she ends up asking her dad if she could actually house more of the survivors because they have a lot of space. And of course he says yes, but we have to make sure that they're 100% not infected and they have to sleep outside in tents. And sooner or later, more families would start to show up, like Trixie, Muffin, and Socks. And like you could guess, things do start going well, until the kids unfortunately came up with the idea to play hide and seek outside, and Bluey was the tagger who goes to seek. So of course she's wandering the woods looking for kids, of course, that are hiding, and hears some ruffling going under the bushes, so she goes to investigate and says, "I found you!" And that's when the adults hear a huge loud scream coming from outside, leading to her being seemingly mauled by the creature, until her aunt luckily saves her, revealing that she's unfortunately been bit. She made a sacrifice to protect her friends and sadly got bit, and when she gets inside, she finally asks her mom about what's going on. And before her mom could answer, we're left with a cliffhanger and brought 1 week into the future, where there's not only more survivors living with them, but it turns out they caught an infected, and it's surprisingly Bluey's dad, Bandit, looking hideously feral and throwing up clumps of bacteria, as if he was some sort of cat throwing up hairballs. And it seems like they lured him into a room to where he's kept captive and being tested on. And surprisingly, Bluey is also revealed to be trapped in her own room as well, most likely because she's obviously been bit and infected. And if you ask me, she doesn't really look that much sane. She has clear foggy pupils similar to like blind dogs. And it seems like Trixie is the one doing all the experiments on Bluey and her dad, and is even drawing blood samples from a mouse or rat and injecting it into Bluey and her dad as well to try to find some cure, most likely. So they're collecting their fur and whatnot, and a few days later, we're shown Bluey's father again, who's gotten way bigger. Meanwhile, Bluey has been trapped in her cell, completely conscious and not going crazy, and weirdly enough, not expressing any symptoms of pain and nausea, going completely against the symptoms of the stages. And to keep her going insane, they've been trying to change her room and whatnot, but it's just not working. And the other kids are also wondering where Bluey has been, but they're just told that she's very, very sick and that she needs time alone by herself, or they're just completely ignored. Bluey's dad did get worse, but luckily a cure was found due to Bluey's blood. And within under a day, Bluey's dad was completely healed, all of his wounds, which is kinda concerning. But nonetheless, before they start to celebrate, Bandit begs the question and asks, "Where's Bluey?" Chili is also worried, and she knows exactly where Bluey is, but starts to notice that Trixie is acting a little bit odd. And it turns out Trixie is kind of losing her mind because the cure doesn't work on Bluey and she needs to cure as much people as possible, and this might mean that Bluey might have to die. Because if she ends up going through any more stages, they may not be able to cure the rest of the world. Trixie is alone on this, starving and trying to help as much people as she can. And she's emotionally troubled. As it's revealed, Bluey is dead. There is an alternate ending of this AU that goes a different route and is kinda more deadlier and worse, but if you guys want any more, just subscribe to the channel. And make sure to let me know in the comments below what AUs I should do next. Check out the description of this video, and peace. God bless you people.